Everybody to Artisan Mentoring, where we talk about everything Pianocraft. We drink coffee and tune really out of tune pianos. So I already just ahead of time went in and recorded it and got basically an idea of where it's at. So just so you know, it's roughly 5 cents flat here, 10 cents sharp here, 35 cents flat here, and then it is sharp at the end. So this is like perfect. It's all over the map, just so you can hear. So you will come to pianos like this, and it will be one of those, I don't know how long it's been since it was tuned. I think it's a little bit out. And so this is kind of par for the course. This is a Samick grand piano, so it's not super expensive. It's not super expensive. So what are some of the things that a not as expensive or high-end piano are subject to? Can anybody tell me kind of that main underlying issue?
They tend to be bright, don't they?
They do tend to be bright. Yeah.
They might not be scaled well.
Might be scaled. That's good. There's a foundational issue though, and that is the woods that they use in a more entry-level piano are greener. And so they're less seasoned, they're less aged, and so they're way more susceptible to humidity, temperature fluctuations, to have stuff like this. This hit the office, I don't know, a couple months ago here, and it wasn't that far out of tune, but in just this last month or so, it has just gone crazy. So they're a little bit more susceptible to going wildly out of tune with basically the woods and the foundation of the piano just being, they swell up and contract way more. So what I've done.
They do that as they get older?
Say that again. Oh, do they settle down when they get older? Is that the question? Yeah. I would say yes, but they seem to always have a lot of these issues. And I don't, I've gone back in pianos. It's a good question. Stacy, do you have a comment on that? I can't say that they get better. Stacy, I don't know what your thoughts.
The pianos get better?
That these Samics, these young chains, these these kind of mass-produced entry-level pianos, do they get more stable over time?
No.
No, I don't think they really do.
I would say they don't. I would say the quality of the parts is just not as good. And so over time, I would think it would, I would think it might even be worse over time. They're just not going to hold as well as a higher end, higher parts, better parts piano. Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of my thought and what my experience has been with those. Because we, like in the store, we would refurbish those all the time, constantly. And they just needed a lot of work, especially those 15, 20-year-old. Oh, yeah, they needed a lot of work. I mean, they can, but if you're willing to do the work on them, if you can regulate and voice and do, you can actually get them pretty decent, but there is work to be put in.
I guess the question, I guess, Justin, I think it's going to be, let's wait and see in 50 years from now if they've settled in and settled down. Because a lot of the woods that, are used in finer pianos are 25, 50 years old, 100 years old or more.
I was thinking like a cheap one that's maybe 60, 70 years old too.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's funny because the quality of the production of the pianos has gone down for the most part in a lot of the pianos. And so we'll look at pianos from the 60s that were kind of your department store pianos. And I look at it now, I'm like, geez, they use solid wood. This is actually better than your new, Asian-made pianos. So it just kind of goes, and the newer pianos are quite expensive. So.
And I've also found that the bottom fell out too, like the really, like the lemons. Like, how you could actually find lemon pianos like in the 80s, like early 90s. So I have found that even that bottom part fell out too. It's like the top, it's kind of both ends, I think.
So I have this angle right here that I think is pretty good because you're gonna be able to see me going through through the tuning. I'm gonna try not to block it, but I'm gonna show you. You're gonna see the magic square happening as we go. You're gonna be able to see roughly kind of what it's looking like, and I'll move it up here so closer to the screen as we go. But it's really simple. I got my ETD, got my tuning lever, and I got my simple tuning wedge, which again, I'm a big fan of these right now. This is the 3" by 1/2 inch. And I don't know, right now, that's just my cup of tea, and I'm drinking it. So, and no, Jacob, as you're watching this, I didn't take time to work on my left-handed tuning. I gave that up a dozen years ago. So I saw that in the comments. So let's go ahead and just kind of get started. Questions before I start, because once I get going, I'm probably going to finish this whole bass section. I'm going to try to get it done in about 5-10 minutes, and where you can kind of just see that rhythm happening. Johnny, I know you have a burning question. What is it? Good.
No, right now. I'm just
Do
anxious.
some tuning. And then it just thumbs down me. All right, here we go. When it's that sharp, I'm gonna break it flat and then bring it back up. That's a nice kind of, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's a nice rattle. So maybe next week we'll go ahead and twist that. By the way, I have this on Smart Tune right now, so it's kind of compensating for everything. Tell me where to go. All right, now we're on to the bicords. So you kind of get a feel for where I was setting it. I'm using, you can kind of see this technique in action. And so again, whether you're here, or you're doing something like that, you get to kind of see at least the way that I do it. And it's, again, you don't have to do it this way, but at least you can kind of see the rhythm of it. I'm just kind of setting it where this is wanting me to set it right now. So I'm fine with that. I'm going to go ahead and move this now since we're here. I'm going to try to move this there so you get to see. So now I'm at the bicords. I'm going to go ahead and tune my far left string to the device. And then I'm going to move the mute over so that I tune my right string to the string I just tuned. Actually see the device. Alright, how are we going to do this? It's important that you see it, but it's also important that I kind of see it too. By the way, just so you know, this clamping kind of system is awesome, but you can't really buy it anymore. Just so you know, though, Mark and Don Perney over at Supply 88 are creating a whole new ensemble, kind of a bracketing piece like this. I highly recommend them, and they're working on it literally as we speak. So this will be coming out at some point in the somewhat near future, and we'll let you know when it is. see that they're about 25 cents flat. And it's wanting me to leave it about 5 cents sharp. How I'm moving my arms, I'm moving kind of my body to keep this fairly consistent, this square fairly consistent.
David, once you get to the strut, do you flip-flop which string you start with? Do you do the right string right by the strut first?
That's exactly what I do. Yeah, so what Michael's talking about is, because I'm always tuning that left string for the most part, and then I'm tuning my others to the left. But what happens when, we run into the strut? So yeah, usually that's what I'm going to do. So I have this last string, and sometimes, Michael, if it's really close to the strut, I will use that strut as a backing to so that I can kind of keep that same rhythm. But usually you're right. And I'll tune the right string with that last string instead of the left string. You can see now that it's wanting me to set this at about 10 cents sharp. Okay, bass section is done. Again, we're all about, here at Artisan, we're all about really kind of keeping things efficient. And not only for efficiency's sake, but I think that it actually leads to a better tuning when you're not just going super crazy, overanalyze. Let your body move the way it needs to move, because it's kind of this almost energy organic experience, and I think that we block it sometimes. So just getting used to 5-10 minutes, get this bass section done. How have you, I know we've talked about this before, have you been working on that? Has that felt natural? Has it felt difficult? What are your thoughts on that?
For me, I've been working on, I think Jacob had mentioned this in one of the previous sessions about getting more efficient in your movement of the mutes and movement of the hammer, more than dealing with trying to shorten the amount of time that you're dealing with tuning. And so I've been trying to be more efficient on me moving between pin to pin and mute moving it from string to string. And that's been helping. Good. Really focusing on that part of it and not so much focusing on speeding up my tuning itself per se.
Got it. No, that's great.
David, for me, I noticed right when you finish the pull, you kind of let go of the hammer and give it another blow. I found I'll pull it up to pitch, and then when I let go, it might go down, and maybe that's just my technique, but I'll pull it up and hit it again, and I notice it goes down a little bit. So I have to continue to pull almost where it's above. So do you kind of let go at the end of every pull just to make sure that it holds? Is that a technique, or is that something I'm doing wrong in the way I'm pulling
Let's
Know that.
find out, because I didn't know that I was doing that. So let me just do that really quick. Yeah. Yeah, I do release it. I know that I end with a pull usually where it's a little sharper. You know, it's more. I ended on a kind of a tighter note, and then the other ones. So, Robert, are you saying that you're keeping your hand on the hammer and that's causing issues, or what do you mean by that?
Well, for uprights this week, I would pull it and then I would press it and it's in tune. And then when I would let go just a little bit, it would relax and then it would go down. So I'd pull it some more. I just wanted to let go and give it one more strike.
Yeah.
And make sure that after I let go, it's still tuning. If I have my hand still on the hammer and press it and it's good.
That's a very good point.
Then I let go and oops, it slips a little and maybe those 2 or 3 cents. So I feel like I need to, over pull it and then let go. Somehow it's the technique of making sure I give it a strike with no pressure on my tuning hammer. That's
exactly what you're saying, and you're right. So we as technicians can tend to bend. We've talked about this before, that you can bend that tuning pin more than you would actually imagine. And so you're right. We want to be, moving the entire pin. And you're right. Watch. I mean, let's just kind of look at this. So this is that note. I'm just bending. I'm bend it probably 3 to 5 cents.
So am I flagpoling too much? Generally, probably.
Yeah, you're flagpoling too much. You need to make sure that you're actually going through and actually make sure that the majority of what you're doing, and we talked about it, I think it was the last session, the majority of what you're doing is moving the tuning pin, but you are doing some flagpoling at the very end, but it's not by very much. It's a very small amount to ease it into place. And then, yes, you want to let go of it and make sure that you can do a tennis blow and it's going to stay. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, Robert. And yeah, I would say that work on just make sure that that's moved in the right position with your hand off, because obviously you're not going to keep your hand on it when it's when you're done with it. So yeah, it has to be an accurate representation is with your hand removed from the hammer. Is it stable? Another thing that you can do is let's just say you've got it stable. It sounds good. You go through and just to say this unison right here, I'm going to go through and I'm going back and forth just a little bit. And then I let go again. Is it still where it's at? So I kind of moved it, massaged it a little bit sharp and a little bit flat, and I could hear those beats coming in, and then I let go of it, and it's still where I want it to be. So it's stable.
Okay.
So that's
I think like Michael was saying, sometimes I get worried about haste. Getting the time in, so I just kind of never take my hand off the hammer, just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And I'll go back in the rods. Well, that's flat now.
Yep.
That's the issue. I'm having some of that.
That makes sense then. Yeah, and so that's a good point, because I do let go of the hammer to see if it's stable. That's interesting.
When I first started, I was using just one mute, and I found myself just constantly reaching in and out and fussing with the mute and all that. So then my mentor was saying that he uses at least 2, if not 3 mutes. And he creates this little, you just get into a groove, you get into a pattern with whether you're using, 2 pins or 3 pins, depending on where you are. Yeah. And so I like just using 2 mutes, and it does create this back and forth thing. So you tune the middle, and then when you move the left mute, then you can tune the right pin of the previous note, the left pin of the current note, and then you tune the middle of the next, and then you move that mute over. So you do get this little back and forth, but once you get into that rhythm, it just speeds it along really quickly. And So that helped me as far as like timing goes, and not having to be reaching in and out and reaching in and out, in and out the whole time.
Yeah.
Because you can just whip out 3 different pitches, bing bang boom, and then you move on, and then 3 more pitches and bing bang boom. You know.
So, David, I've actually seen that, and it's almost like I don't remember if they called it. A technician I was watching do it. It's like walking the mutes. It's almost like walking, and he did it, and it was seamless. It was so perfect. It was just kind of walked all the way down. So yeah, that is a technique. I've never done that technique. I'm curious if Jacob comes on, or maybe when we talk to him next, I'm sure he's experimented with it. Jacob's amazing in that he hears something and then he just tests it out. He tries it out and just sees how it handles. So I'm curious to see if he's done that technique, David, because I've seen it. It was a beautiful, like almost like a dance when they were doing it. So
well, it's weird to get used to it first, because you're like, okay, wait a minute. Where was I? If you like lose track, sometimes you're kind of like, okay, wait, hold on, back up.
Yeah.
But if you don't get interrupted and you just get into your flow, then you can bang out a good chunk of it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That's how I did my last piano. It helped not getting like fatigued from hearing one note over and over too.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because you're switching pitches back and forth and back and forth. Plus, I think it gives the other strings that you've tuned a chance to like settle for a second.
For a second, yeah. All right, so we did about a 5 to 10. Now I want to do. I think if we can get this done, I'm going to shoot for about 10 minutes right here. And so again, take note of every movement. And so I remember when I got to first. I was learning how to tune, and then my mentor was just watch me tune. Don't say anything. Hold on, write down your questions, and just watch. And then just you will see kind of things creep up, just like Robert did. He's like, hey, I noticed you let go. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go through this section. I'm going and tuning the last of the bicords, and then we're going into the tricords. Again, I'm using that same pattern where I'm tuning the far left string first to my device, and then I'm moving. Where we go? If I can do this, turning the far left string with this muted, the other 2 muted, and then I'm going to go ahead and slide that mute here so that my 2 strings are getting tuned, my guide string, and then that middle string, and then I'm flipping that mute, so I'm tuning that far right string to that middle string. That's my rhythm of it. Again, you don't have to use that rhythm, but you're going to see that that's kind of how I do it. So here we go. Keep in mind, sometimes when you stop, it will pick up your voice or something else and maybe move it a couple octaves. I have done this before, where I go and I'm talking with a customer, get a glass of water, and I start tuning again, and I'm an octave or half an octave in a different spot, and I'm just didn't realize that, oh my gosh, I'm on the wrong key, and now I'm sharp. So do keep in mind where you're at with the device. I don't know if other ETDs are like that, but just keep that in mind.
Before you get started, one last question. So you said that you mute the opposite side, so you're tuning the right to the center. Is there a reason that or what's the reasoning of not trying to just try to tune the right to the left and center together?
I want to simplify. I'm all about simplifying and condensing things into their most purest form. So that's why I want to be able to. I've tuned, so I only want to hear 2 sounds, 2 strings.
Yeah.
I don't want to fight anything else. That's really my reason. I've been asked that before, and and some people can say, well, wouldn't it be better because you're tuning you're doing the final of the 3 and you're able to listen to all of the others? I get that. I've never had a problem with this. I think it also forces me to have a really, I don't know. Michael, I don't know the answer to that. I've just always done it this way. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's necessarily the right way versus a wrong way. It's just
that's what I figured. It was just one of the varied techniques that you can get to a good tuning. I was curious your answer.
Yeah, no, it's simply, it kind of boils down to I just want to hear 2 very basic sounds. And yeah, that's really all it comes down to. When I get to here, I can't quite see where I'm at, from this angle. So I usually go over here with the mutes after I hit a certain point. All right, now on to the tricords. That one was kind of squirrely. You see, it kept on going sharp. It kept on going sharp. So I was bending the pen a little bit and then doing a harder test blow to kind of lock it down. And that's a technique you can use too. You can see how sharp I'm pulling it or how sharp it goes. And then I just kind of lock it in, going, bending it and kind of tapping it into place. I'm noticing as I'm tuning now that it's in front of people that I didn't really do a lot of that knockdown technique in the singles and the bicords, but I do it more in these tricords. Hey, Stacy, I think that we should definitely have Daniel practice on this or tune this one. This one is, just so you all know, kind of a bear to tune. This one's going to be kind of rough. We have a technician kind of doing an interview process and working with us, and so we're going to have him tune this, but at least it'll be somewhat in the ballpark. But just so you know, these can be a little bit more difficult to tune, and this one is definitely a little bit more difficult.
And they're pretty common, so a lot of customers have them. So yeah.
By the way, you can't really see this, but now I'll kind of show you. I'm never like a one finger, you know, this is my technique is literally my pointer finger on top of my middle finger, and it just gives it more strength and stability. I'm sure that, let's fast forward like 80 years from now, my fingers are going to be like, but anyways, that's what I do. Notice how this note I just did, it's really at an angle. I'm actually not happy with that. I just kind of went for it, and it stuck out to me because I want to keep this hammer closer to this. But with that one, I went like here because it just kind of dropped into place. It was striking enough that I needed to stop and even mention it, because you want to get in that rhythm where you're staying within this quadrant. And so just keep that in mind. Okay, so sometimes when a note will be, or the note itself will be so far out, I'll get to the end of it and I'm like, okay, I've done that far right string and it's in tune, but it doesn't sound, you know, I can see that it doesn't sound good with the others because the others have dropped a little bit. So sometimes I'll kind of go backwards. So I'll kind of lock that mute going in reverse. Hearing somebody's microphone, I don't know. Just a couple more unisons, then we can take a break and talk about it. You can see that we're getting further and further out of tune. was a pretty quick pass. I think I saw some comments popping up. So questions about that so far?
I think you're giving Coburn a run for his money on the 6 seconds per string timing there.
Yeah, is that what he said? 6 seconds per string? Yeah. Well, this would be a scenario where you would come to the piano, talk to Mrs. Smith and say, hey, pianos have been tuned in a while, or the piano's going to move, whatever it's been. But this is further out of tune than what we would expect to be able to tune in one pass. So imagine you have a black wall. We need to paint it white. In this case, it's going to take 2 coats. So I recommend we do a second tuning after I tune the piano up. I'm going to be very careful not to break strings, but those strings could break in this process because of how much I have to tighten them. And so do you want me to go ahead and add an additional tuning to today? Yeah, that sounds great. Another thing you could say, well, I didn't realize it was that far off. Yeah, usually we have to do an additional tuning if it's 7 or 10 cents, 7 or 10% off. It's closer to 25% off. 25 cents off. And that's an easy way for people to conceptualize it.
So
my question was, can you talk a little bit about why the needs to stay kind of between 10 and 2?
Yeah, so what I'm finding when I'm here, let's again, I like to keep it between that 10 and 2 as much as I can. When I'm here, I'm noticing that they're not as stable, and I'm flagpoling it in a weird way. And so if I keep it consistent within this parameter in the direction of the string, I'm able to ease it, bend the pin just right into place. I can't really do that the same way. If I bend it here, it's not bending in that. I like to bend it down and to the left. That's typically, if you notice it when I'm bending it kind of at that angle. And when I try to do that here, it's actually bending it in a way, it's almost bending it sharp. And so by having it between that 10 and 2, that allows me to stay within that.
Yeah, the way that I heard it is that you're going to flagpole regardless, but you want your flagpoling to be in the same line as the string versus to the side to side. And that's because if you're doing it more toward the string area, then you're right, David. You're having the tension go string wise, and so that flagpoling is helping you. If you're doing it side to side, then it's being counterproductive.
I see. Yeah, that's a good way of describing. Yeah, that's a better way of describing it.
My question was going to be, if you get interrupted and you have to pause for whatever reason, are you leaving your mute and your tuning hammer on the string that you just last tuned, or are you moving to the next string and that's where you're going to start? Which side do you start on that?
Yeah, so that usually I get interrupted, like the kid will come in, the dog will come in, the customer will say, do you want coffee? And so, yeah, I'm usually leaving. It's basically, I lift my hands off and I'm like, everything is back in its spot. But before I start going for it, I'm going to double check that this is still on the right frequency and everything. Good question. And yes, you will get distracted throughout the service call. People are excited to see what you're doing. They're really just like, oh, I've never seen this done. Or, yeah. I remember, to this day, I can remember, I wasn't a big piano player, but I remember having our piano tuned one time in my life. And I was so excited because I knew that a piano tuner was coming. They were going to have a bunch of tools. I was big into tools. I was probably 7, 8, 9 years old. And he showed up. I can remember to this day. He's probably in his 70s, really tall, kind of wiry with a beard and short, just white hair. And I was excited. I just wanted to sit there and just watch. I wasn't going to say anything. But he was like, no, man, like just talking to my mom, like, nope, kids get out. I can't have any, can't get any noise. And it put such a taste in my mouth. I'm like, oh. Like I really wanted to see what was going to happen. I was fascinated with it. So we make it a point with all of our technicians, invite them in, let them see it. I think Alan has even let some of the kids try to move the tuning pins on some of the grand pianos. And so make it an experience, because you don't get your piano tuned all the time. So, and you never know. Maybe the kid looking at what you're doing is going to be one of the next future piano tuners. So, I don't know.
I was tuning a couple of months ago. Well, oh gosh, no, it was probably back more like in July. But anyway, there was a kid there who's probably 12 or so, and he is the one that answered the door. And I said, "Hi, I'm here to tune your guys' piano." And he goes, "Huh, I didn't know that was a career." And then he like let me in. I was like, "Oh, okay, well, turns out."
The cutest one that I ever had was, the kid was probably 3 or 4, and he was told that a tuner's coming, piano tuner, and so he must have thought my name was Tuner. I think he thought my name was Tuner. So he's like, "Hey Tuner, what are you doing here? Hey Tuner, what's that? Hey Tuner, hey Tuner." I never corrected him. I thought it was the most adorable thing. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing, Tuner?"
That's cute.
Sometimes when I get into this upper treble area, it'll be so far out, or I'll need to kind of maneuver, all like I can't hear it quite, or there'll be false beats. So sometimes I'll just I'll tune a string individually. I'll go ahead and be like, "Man, I can't hear that far right string. I don't know if it's in tune." So I'll mute off the other two and just tune the that one string to the device. And that's just another thing that you can do, and it's sometimes necessary. So just know that you don't have to keep the same pattern. It's like, "Oh man, I can't hear this. I know I shouldn't tune every string to the device. It should be more fluid." But no, sometimes you're gonna have to. Sometimes you have to hear that string. You can't see what's going on. You need, and so I will sometimes manipulate my process and just go individually if I can't really hear what is supposed to be happening. And I don't know if any of you have had that experience as well.
Yeah, I experience that quite a bit on the high treble, where I just having a really hard time hearing when I'm trying to do a unison up there, and I'm just having to do them individually.
Yeah, no, that's totally something that you can do, and it's a trick of the trade. So don't feel bad about that.
Yeah. Question real quick, David.
Yeah.
Talking about that, I had to do that yesterday on a grand, but the issue was, I don't know if you've come across this. I would do a click up and it would like shoot like a whole step up, and then I'd click back down, but then it would go down like 2 whole steps, and like I just could not, like the slightest movement was making it change so big, and so took me so long to try to get it, just right.
What kind of a piano was it, Victor?
It was a 7-foot Kawai.
Yeah. From the 80s? Or
from the late 50s, 60s, early 60s.
I experienced that a lot with like Mason and Hamlin brands. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's what I experienced with Mason and Hamlin brands. So there's some pianos that honestly are just gonna eat your lunch. I'll just say it. They're gonna eat your lunch, and you're gonna be way longer than you would expect, and it just doesn't end up sounding as good as you want it to sound. And sometimes you have to go from pin, like you'll have to do that trick where you're just tuning almost every string with the device at times. Because
that's what I had to do.
You're gonna have to bend things, So I would say the only advice I have for you with that one is just cut yourself some slack, because that's gonna happen. You're gonna get to pianos, it's like, man, I go here and they just boom. And so you're feeling like, man, I'm bending the pin so far down.
Yeah.
I would just say do some hard test blows, kind of knock it in as you're bending it to try to get that tension out.
Okay. Yeah. No, yeah, it was rough because I only had like an hour and 15 to do the whole thing, and it still takes me a while to, it probably takes me two and a half hours regularly, and then I was like, oh man, I only got like an hour, and so I was doing so well, and then I got to the treble, and it just tore. Yeah, it was the worst. I was so proud of myself. I was like, man, I'm going so fast. I probably did the rest like in 20 minutes. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be a good one, and then I got there, and I was like, nope. I should have shut my mouth. Shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah, I think that sometimes the piano gods just want to mess with us.
For sure.
This is usually the section that I don't like tuning. I don't like tuning these two sections, right? Finer movements, little movements go a long way. They're harder to stabilize. Sometimes they're hard to hear. Sometimes you can get false beats in these upper two areas of the piano. And that's just the reality. That's why we usually give some more time than the bass. You know, the bass obviously is easier to tune, 5-10 minutes. Usually that middle section is the most important section, I would say, of the piano. This, you know, C3 to, I don't know, roughly C5. That's a, you know, those several octaves are really important. So I'm not saying that this area isn't important. I'm just saying this is probably one of the hardest areas to tune. And so that's just something you should know and cut yourself some slack, because it is just the reality of the situation.
It's not a very forgiving range.
It's not.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not forgiving, and a lot of times you're doing more bending. A lot of times you're second guessing your career choice. Times like Victor, it's one of those things that it's just kind of a beast. So here we go. So again, we've been talking. I'm going to go ahead and just double check. Sure enough, it moved. So this is another scenario where if you notice there's this strut right here. So I started on the far left, tuned my far left string, then I moved my mute to tune my middle to the left. And now I just simply go ahead and mute off the far left and the middle and tune my far right to the device. Again, I have that strut there. All right, who are you hearing? When it's so far out of tune like this, a lot of times I'm noticing this is organically what I'm doing right now. So I'm tuning my far left string to the device. I just tuned my middle to the left, and I muted off the two strings I just tuned. And I'm tuning it to this. And I'm doing that just kind of organically. So I'm just trying to think about why I'm doing that right now. I think I'm doing that because of how far out of tune this is. Knowing that the other two notes are the tuning is going to slide a little bit because of how sharp I'm going. And so I don't want to waste any time, and I want to get this far right string up to that pitch and stabilize. So again, tuning my far left string, tuning my left to the middle. And now I'm going to try just tuning the far right to the... I don't know how long I'm on each string. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's 6 seconds, maybe it's less. So like, I just got done with that unison, and I'm like, oh, I don't like it, so I'm just going to walk it back. I'm tuning the far right string to the device. Now I'm tuning my middle string to the far right string. Now I'm tuning the left to the middle. So sometimes I'll kind of go one way and then the other to make sure it's in tune. Again, this is a piano that I would have already talked to the customer and gotten the approval for another tuning. But unlike a lot of people that go and they're like, okay, I'm just going to quickly get it up to pitch. I'm going to do this pitch raise. I'm going to go crazy with it, just getting it in the right direction. I'm like, no, I like to take my time with this tuning, and it makes the second tuning that much more precise. So I'm a big fan of being intentional and methodical on this first pass. That's another reason I don't like calling it a pitch raise. I like using terms like I'm going to do a tuning and then a follow-up tuning or a secondary tuning, an additional tuning, because I think of the pitch raise as being just sloppy. I know that a lot of people will have different opinions on that, and that's cool. But you can see we're 25 cents flat now. 25 to 30 cents. Again, I'm using that technique where I'm tuning the far left string to the device, the middle string to the left, and then I'm muting off the left and the middle to just hit my far right string to the device. And then I'm going to kind of walk it back. Sounds pretty good. Right here we hear a there's a false beat in there. I don't know if you can hear that. It's kind of wavering. So that's one of those things that's like, okay, it makes it so this device is just that much more helpful. So instead of I'm using my eyes a lot when I come to these false beats. Seeing how close I can get it to where it needs to be. In this scenario, I'm definitely going to mute off that far right string, or excuse me, the middle and the far left, so that I can just tune that far right string clip and just kind of cancel out that false beat string. I find that when I use the CyberTuner Smart Tune feature like I'm doing, when I go to my additional tuning, we're within about a cent or two off. You know, by the time I'm done with the tuning and I come back to start, it's moved that much. So if you notice, I'm stretching this 5, 10, 7 cents sharp. But by the time I come back to it, it's pretty close, and I just lock it in.
So David, on the display of your ETD, when the circle is spinning inside the black dot so that you're on target, what is the threshold? Is it within 0.3 cents when it's in the circle and it's spinning, or do you know what the threshold is on that?
Yeah, is that something that I put on my device?
I don't know. I'm just asking if you knew, because I know on my Pianoscope it actually says, it'll give you 0.3. Well, I can add that on the display, but I didn't know whether you knew kind of what that range was once it's in the circle.
So yeah, that's a good question. So
because it's still spinning, even when you're in the circle, you can still be spinning. So it is a threshold of some sort, but I just didn't know whether you knew what the range was.
I don't know if the range is. I'm guessing it's between 1 and 3 cents.
Oh, so that wide is okay. I would think that once it's in the circle and it's still spinning, it's within 1 cent. But
well, if I okay, so here's there's dead cent. I'm gonna try to make this one just absolutely crazy pure. Like you're right here with that one I just did. It's probably right on. Within a fraction.
Yeah, if it's not spinning left or right, then you're right. It should be dead on.
I'm okay with it not spinning, but maybe rotating a little bit sharp,
Yeah. Because it's going to, because you're stretching everything already, it's going to pull flat anyway.
Exactly.
No, I did hear, I think you said somebody does fine tune first and then smart tune. David?
Yeah, that was Coburn was saying that he does like a pitch raise with his Tune Lab.
Uh-huh.
And then a fine tune with his Cyber Tuner.
Oh, I see.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Ramses was telling me that he doesn't like Smart Tune anymore for pitch raises because it'll take it too sharp. And so he's having to knock it down a lot at the top end sometimes. So I told him to try using Fine Tune first and then the other one, and he says that worked great.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying that like a piano like this, he would go
Yeah.
he would go and hit Fine Tune?
I think so, because it doesn't the overpull is not as drastic, or I don't even know if there is any.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm not sure if that's gonna work on every piano though, because yeah, sometimes they will drop a lot, but in some cases they're pretty stable. So it might be piano to piano.
To your point though, Victor, and Ramses, you're right. I've noticed that if anything on my second pass is kind of still squirrely or really off, it will be these two treble sections areas. They will still be fairly sharp.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. So Robert, what are your thoughts?
Well, I had a quick business question. Are you charging a full tuning price for that second pass?
No. So let's give you some kind of perspective. If you go to our website, we have different tuning offerings. We have Express, which is just a simple 1 hour tuning. We have a signature service, which is kind of a tuning with other things. And then, we have a Premier. So Express, Signature, and Premier. So what I usually will do, a lot of times what happens is the customers will know they need something additional. And so they'll say, yeah, I want to schedule a signature service, which includes the tuning and some other calibration, lubrication stuff. I'll get to this $330 tuning and I'm like, wow, I'm going to go ahead and do all the other stuff, lubrication, the pedals, regulation, do a tuning. Mrs. Smith, I know that, we wanted to kind of tackle as much as possible, but this needs an additional tuning. So it's going to be an additional $95. And what that'll do is make it so that it's really kind of where it needs to be. And then you can go to a yearly tuning or every 6 months. And so that will be an additional $95. So let's just say I'm at an Express tuning, which we charge $195. That's a simple 1 hour appointment. And we'll say, the same thing. Hey, it'll be an additional $95 if you want me to go ahead and do an additional tuning. And so that's what we have in our services, in our Gazelle, is we have our signature service or our tuning express, and it will list what's included. And then we'll go ahead and add an additional items. It'll say additional services, basically what we recommend. And it may say additional tuning. It may say lubrication of the pedals. It may say and that is something that we'll show to the customer. We have tablets to show it so that it's very clean and easy to see. This is what we recommend. Do you want me to go ahead and do that? I have time. And so it is at a discounted rate since we're already there. It's roughly about half the cost of our, of what got us out there. So $95 as opposed to $195. Just so you know, I found that the $95 price is something that people pretty much do not balk at. $95, yeah, makes sense, okay. But $100, I don't know. $100, it is weird.
Yeah, because you're using that same number for add-ons of lubrication or calibration, of the mini calibration services or the mini lubrication, and not a full session type of thing.
Exactly. So that's us kind of going through the piano. I don't know how much time we have, but I have to going to an appointment. But hopefully that's helpful, that you can see the rhythm of it and see kind of like how it works for you that are joining later on. Make sure to comment in the video if you have questions. But I know that for myself, when I saw my mentor doing kind of a whole piano for the most part, it was really like, okay, I'm spending too much time on this. I'm spending not enough time on that. I'm bending the pin over too much. Just to see it done was helpful. So hopefully this has been helpful and get a rhythm of it.
No, this was good.
have a fantastic, phenomenal, amazing weekend. Work on some pianos and cut yourself some slack, because this is difficult to do, but you're all really working it and your body's learning how to do it. You know how to do it, but it takes a while for the body to catch up to where you get the rhythm. So good job. I'll see you all on Monday. And I kind of want to show you how, I mean, there's some stuff on here that are really bugging me, some bass strings that need to be twisted. And so we might kind of go into some of these repairs now that we've got it at least in tune or tuned up. So we're going to start playing around with this one, and maybe we'll go ahead and have, at some point, Victor walk us through a cleaning on this guy using his new product. So.
Yeah, that'll be good. I did that Kauai yesterday. It was a beast.
Nice.
It was huge. Yeah.
David, no prepping that thing with syrup.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna get some maple syrup and just like drizzle it on.
Yeah, no Hanes blood.
All right. Have a great weekend, y'all. I'll see you on Monday.
Thanks.
See you later.
Bye.